What up, Space Fam? Goes in here from Anime Uproar, and I'm back at it again to discuss the latest crazy chapter of One Piece. And wow, we got so much to talk about, including the shocking conclusion of the Luffy vs Awakened Luchi fight, the secret behind the Seraphims and their powers, an insane reveal about devil fruits, and the appearance of an admiral, and more. So make sure to stay tuned for this action-packed, insane chapter. Chill out parking with it and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing these One Piece reviews and want to keep them coming. Be a smashing pirate king rather than passing Orochi, and the universe will reward you. Make this the video you join the Nakama if you haven't already by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell to turn on all notifications so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And I know some of you don't even know that you're not subscribed, so just take a look below the video and make sure you are subscribed. It only takes a few seconds. And now without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So this chapter is called The Most Powerful Beings in the World, and if that's not a hype title chapter, I don't know what is. Now we start the chapter with Sentomaru being stricken down and Gear 5 Luffy understandably worrying, eyes popping out and everything. He apologizes saying he didn't mean to distract Sentomaru, while the latter says he did see the attack coming and thought he blocked it. But the implication is that's just how tough Awakened Luchi is. Even if you block it, it still almost ends you. And based on the title, we could infer that along with Luffy, Luchi is now one of the strongest beings in the world, so this does make sense. However, the title can also apply to something else as we'll see, but more on that later. Luchi even compliments Sentomaru saying he's tough, but he needs him out of the picture, since as we saw last chapter, Sentomaru outranks them in command hierarchy when it comes to the Seraphims, and everyone wants the ridiculously overpowered Seraphims on their side. And I don't blame them, especially after what we're going to learn in this chapter. Luckily, Luffy steps in and uses Booming White Whip to send Luchi flying. He spins so much himself that he can't stop spinning even after the move is finished. You gotta love the complete lack of seriousness that Luffy brings into serious fights in this form. I wonder if it'll be a significant weakness when he comes up against Blackbeard or some other top tier opponent down the line, since Luffy seems to prioritize having fun as much as winning. Jinbei has to tell Luffy to hurry and they gotta get to Vegapunk fast to save Atlas. Hilariously though, Luffy doesn't stop spinning and the spinning even starts causing him to move in the opposite direction. We then see some Seraphims going off. The little Mihawk with his sword and little Jinbei with his swim fruit powers. And once again, what perfect powers for a fishman. Amazing. Imagine being able to use all of those insane swimming powers on land. So OP. The Seraphims are built up even more when Kaku mentions that they are unstoppable, and then it's mentioned that it's even more terrifying when you remember that they're still just children. Of course, the crazy implication there is they'll continue to grow and get stronger as time goes on. I gotta admit, I wasn't crazy about the Seraphims because I don't like the idea of scientific creations like pacifistas surpassing humans in power. But clearly Oda is making it clear that they are extremely powerful and have the potential to become even more powerful. They aren't just decorative or fodder. They can easily turn the tides of a fight. Let me know in the comments if you're cool with that, or if it also kind of rubs you the wrong way, having creations being so overpowered, especially compared to humans. Frankie goes on to cry, recognizing that little Jinbei is using the swim fruit that belongs to his sworn brother, Senor Pink. He's worried that since only one person can have a fruit at a time, it could mean Pink has bit the dust. But Frankie is told that he's currently an inmate at Impel Down, and then when Frankie asks if they made a copy of his fruit, we get some insanely interesting information about devil fruits and how far Vegapunk has come to being able to replicate their powers. So it's said that so far it has only been possible to manufacture zone fruits artificially, as we saw with Momo and his Kaido copy fruit. I also love how Vegapunk mentions Caesar's smile fruit method only to disregard it quickly as being unacceptable. Vegapunk explains that he's fairly certain with unlimited resources, even special types of devil fruits can be recreated. But, and this is very interesting, he still hasn't confirmed if such synthesized fruits can be awakened. Fascinating stuff here. Science has really gotten to a crazy level here, and it could get even crazier according to Vegapunk. Logias and Awakening seem to be the most troublesome to recreate. Along with the fact that artificial fruit awakenings never happened yet, Vegapunk hasn't been able to get Logias right either, saying they are trickier than he expected. So even though devil fruits may seem less special now that they can be reproduced like this, at least so far Logias and awakened fruits have kept their prestige, which I really like. One of the first questions that pops up would be, can he recreate another Luffy? But since Gear 5 Luffy is awakened, it's more likely that he could just give someone rubber powers by creating an artificial sun god fruit, which is nowhere near as impressive as where Luffy is today. Vegapunk then says something else that's fascinating to me. They did come up with an alternative for copying Paramecia powers. He says you can synthesize a blood additive from a Paramecia user's lineage factor that will grant their power once transfused. Vegapunk calls it green blood, and you can visibly see it running through the arms of the Seraphims. Frankie is shocked that he could actually create blood. And this is when one of our big questions are answered. Can the clones of the warlords use their devil fruits? And we see Boa use the power of the love fruit to turn characters into stone, just like Boa is able to do. Vegapunk goes on to hype up the Seraphims by saying they're the culmination of his ideas, aka the culmination of his genius. We see Kuma similarly using fruit powers when he uses Ursa's shock next. Vegapunk calls the Seraphims the peak of what our science can accomplish, and even adds that they may very well go down as the most powerful beings in the history of the sea. This is a crazy statement, since of course the Yonko and Admirals are also competing for that title of the most powerful being. And here the title of the chapter takes on another possible meaning as mentioned, referring to the Seraphims rather than to Luchi or even to Luffy. It's a crazy statement for sure, and these guys, who I never thought would be a threat for Yonkos or for Admirals, are being hyped up as if they could be. Sanji remarks that they are basically Navy weapons and Robin says yes, and they pose a huge threat to us, meaning to the Straw Hats. It's crazy because Blackbeard wanted to prevent the Navy from getting Boa's insane Devil Fruit power, and yet they still have it through this Seraphim. These Seraphims aren't just strong, and they are really strong, their abilities make them very tricky too. As Awakened Luchi moves in to finish off Sentomaru, Luffy steps in what must be one of my favorite panels in the chapter. He grows his head and prepares to swallow up Luchi, although props to Luchi, he reacts quick enough to avoid it. Yeah, Luffy is having a bunch of fun, but you gotta give props to Luchi for surviving so long against the Yonko who beat Kaido himself. I love seeing Luffy use one of the surrounding tubes and rubberizing/tunifying it so that it propels him like a slingshot. He even puts on goggles and bam, lands an insane hit on Luchi that stretches him more than any being should ever be able to stretch. Luchi even remarks, "What insane power." Luffy just laughs uncontrollably as Luchi is sent flying. We see two think bubbles saying, "I'm losing consciousness, can't hold on," which I assume is a continuation of Luchi's thoughts, and it's likely about his awakened form. In the meantime, little Boa helps our guys by pointing them to the vacuum rocket. Jinbei thanks her, saying it's nice to see a kind version of Boa, which is hilarious. They created little Boa with the personality of a tsundere, and so she calls him an insolent dummy and says that she's just following orders. It's interesting that they actually have personalities like this and aren't just killing machines, devoid of emotion. Our guys tell Luffy to hurry. Sentomaru tells Luffy that he's trusting Vegapunk to him, and Luffy promises to get him off this island no matter what. In the end, Luffy, after dominating the fight, makes it to the rocket in time. Notably, Luffy is in a clearly exhausted and droopy form after using Gear 5 to Bonnie's shock. We're told the ride should take 32 seconds on the super fast rocket. They arrive and we're told all other flights have been cancelled, so now it should be really hard for CP0 to get to them. So it looks good for our guys except for one detail which we'll get into later, but let me know if you can guess in the comments. After we're shown barricades and security being improved, we jump to CP0 and they seem to compliment Luffy, saying you have to hand it to him, Vegapunk couldn't ask for a better bodyguard. We see Luchi, and notably he doesn't have a droopy form or exhausted form like Luffy. He looks fine despite also using his awakening for an extended period of time. Their orders are to wait for the Marines, but Luchi worries that if they wait too long, the Straw Hats will get away. Back to Vegapunk and the others. They are surprised that the government wants to kill the smartest man in the world, although it's not surprising to Vegapunk. It's said that nobody wants that level of intellect to turn against them, and now that they have the Seraphims, the pinnacle of his science, they want to make sure he can't help anyone else. Plus, if they kill Vegapunk, the Seraphims will obey the world government officials without issue. It makes sense from a Machiavellian point of view why the government doesn't want Vegapunk to stay alive. Vegapunk calls the fact that a Yonko's crew like the Straw Hats showed up just as things came to a head was a serendipitous twist of fate. As the crew welcomes Vegapunk aboard, Bonnie says she's going to kill him if he doesn't return her father back to normal. We also see CP0 and the power of the Seraphims behind them. They are committed to not letting any Vegapunk survive. And this is now definitely a hard challenge for the Straw Hats, with the very much hyped up Seraphims against them. And oh my god, I just thought of Zoro taking on Mini Hawkeye. I know I should have thought of that before, but I just thought of it now, and that would be crazy. It would be a crazy stepping stone before beating Mihawk himself, but Oda may prioritize escape here rather than a definitive defeat, especially because, as we see, the one and only Kizaru appears, and he's bringing help. He says that on paper for the Straw Hats, it's a straightforward escape, but that the Straw Hats are in for a surprise. Not only will Kizaru aid CP0 and the Seraphims, they will also get as many warships as possible to Egghead. We're told the might of the Navy draws near, and wow, this is getting insane. Good job Oda for setting up an actually challenging situation soon after Luffy beat Kaido and unlocked a ridiculous new gear. Let me know your thoughts on this chapter and what you expect to happen next. Will there be a big definitive fight? Will we finally see Kizaru go down, or will something happen and allow the Straw Hats to escape without a real fight? Perhaps another force joins and helps the Straw Hats escape, perhaps Blackbeard even joins the party eventually, and if you're curious about what that could mean for the Marines or the Straw Hats right now, don't miss this new video about Blackbeard's insanely OP crew and their insane new powers, link on screen and in the description.